Next up, we're going to start customizing some of our pages. In order to do that, we are going to be using blocks. Now, we've briefly looked at blocks before, but I want to delve a little bit deeper into these powerful components of WordPress. Blocks allow both beginners and advanced users to build pages, templates, and really entire websites by dragging and dropping elements into place. The WordPress block editor is a content editing tool that allows users to create and customize layouts for WordPress pages and posts. Block elements can be used to add or edit a page or a post. Blocks can include things like titles, images, tables, audio or video files, and buttons. Blocks allow users to create flexible layouts by dragging and dropping blocks into place. Each block can be customized independently to fit the user's needs. We can even add placeholder blocks to our content for editing later. Blocks allow us to see a document overview, which allows us to understand and organize our pages. And finally, we can use something called the list view to navigate between blocks, or the outline tab to see the post or page details. Let's jump into WordPress, and we'll start off by using blocks to customize our homepage. Currently on our website, our homepage is showing a list of our posts. This is the default behavior for WordPress. So what I'll do is I'll go into Settings, I'll go into Reading. I'm going to change how my homepage displays content. So instead of showing the latest posts, I'm going to change this to show a static page. Once you do this, you'll need to assign what static page is going to serve as your new home page. And for us, that's going to be our home page. And we also need to specify which page is going to contain our posts. For us, that's going to be our blog page. I'll click Save Changes. And if we go back to the front end of the website, you'll see that the home page now just says home. It's very plain. And if we go to our blog page, it now looks like what our homepage used to look like. Now that we have that in place, let's begin by customizing our homepage. I'm going to go to Pages, Home, and Edit. This allows us to edit the homepage. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the eyeball off on this title that says Home. I don't want that to appear, so we will just turn this title off. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the block editor to create a hero image with some messaging. I'll click the plus sign, and we're going to go ahead and open up the Browse All button. And what we want to use is the cover media element. When I click cover, it's going to insert this cover media element onto my page, and then I can begin to modify this element. We are prompted that we need to either upload media or select something from our media library. I'm going to click Media Library. I'll select the image that I want to use for this particular hero image. I'll click Select to implement this into my page, and now you can see I have a hero image. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the overall block. This will allow me to control how this block image is going to appear on my page. I'm going to go to the Style tab of the editor, and I'm going to add an overlay. Currently, a purple overlay is showing, but I want to modify this. I'm going to go to Gradient, and I'll click on this little circle right here to change the color. So I'm going to have my gradient go from black to a black, but I'm going to have the second black be basically transparent. So I'm having a gradient that goes from a black to nothing. I'm going to scooch this circle over so that my gradient is more intense on this left-hand side. And then we can control the direction of our gradient. So you can see as I move this around, I can control where our gradient is sitting within our page. I'm going to change the angle to about 56 degrees. In addition, you can control the overall opacity of the overlay. I'm going to make this a little bit darker. I want text to appear on the left side of this, so I want to make sure I have plenty of contrast so my text is going to show up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this menu that is appearing on top of this particular block element. I'll click on this icon right here, which is going to control how this item is aligned. I want this item to align as full width. This will ensure that the item is going to take up the entire width of the page. Now I'm ready to start adding some content. We can click the plus sign to do this. I'll begin by adding a heading. I'm going to go ahead and type the text that I want to be for my heading. And our text is going to say Gardens Under Glass. If we highlight our text, we can control what type of heading we're going to use. We can also control things like the alignment and if we want this to be bold or italic. If I want to control the color of the text, I would need to highlight it, and then I can come over here to the right, and obviously this is where I can control the text color. We're going to make our text appear as white. When I start editing elements to the block editor, I like to use the document overview view. This allows us to be able to easily see what is within the block. So you can see I have a paragraph. The paragraph was here by default. I don't really need this, so I'm going to click these three dots and I'll select delete. Now I just have my heading element that appears within the cover element. I want to create another element within this block. I'm going to click the plus sign, which takes me to the block inserter, and we are going to search for a row. I'll create a row, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the plus sign within this first row, and we're going to create a paragraph. I'll place my text within this paragraph, and as you can see, the text is spanning the entire width of my hero image. Let's make this text white so we can see it a little bit better. I don't want this to span the entire width. If we go back into our document overview and look inside the list view, the paragraph exists within the row. In order to ensure that my paragraph only takes up about half of this space, I'm going to create a column. I'll click a plus sign, and then I'm going to search for column. I'll insert a column, and I'm going to create a 50-50 split column. Now that I have this in place, we're going to go back to the document overview, and I'm going to place the column inside of the row. Then we'll take this paragraph and place it inside the first column. As you can see, by inserting the column, this ensures that our paragraph of text only takes up half of the available space, which is what I want. Let's go ahead and save this and see what this looks like in the front end portion of our website. If I come back to my website and I refresh, you're going to see that now I have this nice hero image that's taking up the entire width of my website. As my website gets smaller, the content is going to change, and at the mobile side, the two columns actually end up stacking, so the text is taking up full width. I am fine with this. However, I do want to customize the font that I'm using for this H1. If we go back to the WordPress editor and we highlight this text, you can see that we have the typography area. In some themes, you will be able to go to Appearance and redefine the font family. But for us, we can only pick the font that we're currently using and use one of these other styles of this font. This is not what I want to do in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to save our page. We'll go back to WordPress, and I'm going to go into my customizer. We're going to go to Global, Typography, and if you recall from before, we had assigned font families to the H1, the H2, the H3, and the H4. Currently, I'm not using anything for H5 and H6 because I didn't feel like I was going to use those on my website. I'm going to click on the H5, and instead of inheriting our default font family, which at this point is our Lato font, I'm going to use a font called Allura. This is a Google font, and this particular theme, keep in mind that I'm still using the Astra theme. automatically is going to install these fonts. I will go ahead and define Allura. I'm going to make the font size 60, and I'll leave everything else at the defaults. We're going to publish these changes, and we'll close the customizer. If we go back to our home page and I change this heading to be a heading of size 5, the size changes, but we don't see the Allura font. If we click Save, however, and view this in the front end portion of the website, you will see that now the font family has changed. For whatever reason, this particular theme does not allow us to preview the Google fonts in the backend portion of WordPress. So if you do something like this, make sure that you're verifying that this works in the front end portion. You can think of blocks as easy ways to set up chunks of your website that you want to be able to modify in a certain way. Let's go ahead and let's make one more block. I'm going to click underneath the hero image. I'll click the plus sign, and we're going to start off by creating a column. Because I just used the column element, it is located in the recently used items. I'll click this, and once again, we're going to pick a 50-50 split for our column. I really appreciate having this document overview because sometimes it's hard to see where the columns are unless you're inside of them. But if you come to this list view, you can hover over any of these things and it will display the elements. This just helps us to verify what's happening within this element. Inside the first column, I'm going to create a heading. We're going to change this to an H4, and I'll type my text that I want to use. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit return, which is going to automatically create a paragraph element for me. I'll insert my text into this element, and then I'm going to go ahead and click one more block element. This time I want to use a button. So I'm going to search for button. Here's our button, and I'm going to go ahead and just add some text here. We're going to make this text a link. And we want this to go to our design page. So I'm going to type design, and you can see my design page comes up here. And then we're going to go ahead and modify the colors of this button. So with the button selected, I'll come over here to the right to the style area. We want the text color to be white, but for the background color, we're going to use our dark teal. I'm going to go ahead and leave the padding on the top and the bottom as it is. I'll increase the padding on the right and the left to small. I'm also going to increase the border radius to give this more rounding. We're going to make the border white and change the value to 1 pixel. And then I'm going to click these 3 dots and I'm going to turn on the shadow component. I will add a drop shadow to give my button a little bit more depth. Now I'm going to move on to the second column. In this column, we're going to insert a picture. I'll click the plus sign. I'm going to search for image, and I'm going to choose an image from my media library. I'll select the image that I want to use, and you can see it's dropped into this space. The final thing that I want to do here is I'm going to select the overall column. I find the easiest way to do this is within the list view. And then I'll click right here so that I can modify the styles. We're going to increase the padding to extra small for both the top and the bottom, as well as the right and the left, to just provide some additional spacing. I'm going to also increase the margin to extra small, so I have a little more space on the top and the bottom. And let's actually make this medium so we have a little bit more space here. Then I'm going to set my border color to my mid-tone gray. We're going to set the border width to 1, and I'm going to plug in a border radius of about 10 pixels so I have a little bit of rounding within this element. Now I'm going to click on my image, and this actually is going to make my image appear at full size resolution, which is what I want. So I think this is looking pretty good. Let's save this and check out how it looks in the front end portion of our website. I'll refresh my page, and you can see here is this particular element. I did not make this element full width, so if my page is very wide, it will stay at a fixed width, but as my page gets smaller, it's going to shrink down and eventually it'll stack this into one column, which is fine. Hopefully this gives you an idea of how you can use block elements to begin to customize and design your own web page using WordPress.